Welcome to the NCDWI Guide podcast, where defenders of the Constitution assemble to prepare for courtroom battle and firm owners gather to develop marketing strategies that will revolutionize the practice of criminal defense. Here's your host, the NCDWI guy, Jake Minnick.
Hello, fellow freedom fighters, and welcome to episode 147 of the NCDWI Guy podcast. On today's episode, we have my good friend, Freddy Woods, on the podcast to talk to us about all things marketing. Fred is an incredible attorney. I've known him for over a decade, but he is an even better business person, and he is always looking for ways to improve his law firm, to improve his branding, his marketing, to improve his client experience. And so I'm very excited to have Fred on the podcast to talk to us about that. You also notice that Fred is the sharpest dressed person we have had on the podcast to date. And that's how he's been since day one that I've known him. Just an incredible attorney, down to earth, as nice as a lawyer that you would ever talk to. And I'm very excited to have him on today to talk to us about marketing. To give you a little background about Fred, he is an experienced attorney. He's handled thousands of civil and criminal cases. He is a seasoned trial lawyer with extensive courtroom experience, has tried hundreds of criminal and civil cases, including trials involving murder, auto and truck litigation, oil rig and maritime litigation, state and federal criminal defense, white-collar financial crimes, and civil asset forfeiture. Fred is well-traveled, multilingual, and renowned for his work internationally with international prisoner exchanges and multi-country litigation between member countries of the United Nations. Before entering private practice, Fred served as CBCF Fellow to Congressman James Clyburn in the U.S. House of Representatives. Mr. Woods also served as the first law clerk for the Honorable Donald Beatty, currently the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of South Carolina, and first worked as a trial lawyer at the law firm of Lowry, Thompson, and King in Anderson, South Carolina. For over a decade, Fred served as of counsel to law firms in Washington, D.C., Atlanta, and Miami, working on various national and international litigation cases and orchestrating technology-related business deals. Fred has been featured as a guest commentator in the media, giving his opinion on both legal and political issues. He's also been invited as a guest lecturer at many local universities and colleges. A political fundraiser and a social and economic activist, Fred has served on the boards of multiple charities and foundations through the years, including the Redevelopment Authority and the American Red Cross. Fred's legal career spans more than 26 years, and he is currently a managing partner at the law firm of Snow & Woods and the founding partner of the Woods Law Firm, with joint offices in 6 cities and 2 states. I am very excited to have Fred on the podcast today, and I hope that you enjoy our conversation as much as I did. Let's dive into it, Fred. We've just been talking about you've got one of the best personas of any attorney that I've ever met.
Yeah, you just hyping me up, man.
Yeah, man. It's so cool to have this conversation with you, and just looking dapper as ever. Got the sweet office space in the background, but there's the attention to detail that you've always had with clients and cases. Just goes literally to every single step of presentation of the office. So I just want to point out like how cool it is to be talking about the business of law with you, because I really think it's something that we don't spend enough time talking about in law school. And then once we get out and hang our own shingle, we're so much stuck in the muck that it becomes difficult to do that. So very, very grateful to have you on the show, Fred. And why don't you just tell everybody a little bit about kind of what got you into law and why you went to law school and what drew you into criminal defense?
Well, I wanted to be a lawyer since I was about 7 years old, and
That's awesome. Well,
yeah,
that's
so
so
I
cool.
knew I was watching an episode of something called Good Times. It's like an old show. And this guy named Michael he said, when I'm a lawyer, I'm gonna do this. When I'm a lawyer, I'm gonna do that. So I asked my mom and dad, I said, what's a lawyer? And my mom said, to her credit, she said, well, instead of telling you, I'm gonna show you.
Oh,
So
that's
she
cool.
took me to a local lawyer's office, and I was just kind of impressed with, everything. And he was a state senator, and he had a lot of swag, and he was really nice to me. And he said, well, just come and I'll take you and show you what court is about. So he literally took me when I'm like this young kid. I think I was probably 8 by then.
That's
And he
so
just
crazy.
showed me what court was about, walked me around, introduced me to judges, introduced me to people. And it really made a big difference. And since that time, I've kind of done the same thing with other, students. I'll take them and introduce them to the judges, or introduce them to all the court personnel, and let them see how things work, and let them sit in the big chair at the judge's chair. And it just makes a big difference. So he did that. And that was really good for me, growing up. And after that, my experience with him was I was in college, and he was a state senator still at that time. So he allowed me to be able to work for him as a Senate page. And so I got to be able to go to the legislature in South Carolina and see how that exactly works, and walk and talk with everybody. And it just became easy for me. So I followed that up, and when I was in law school, I was in law school in DC. So I went to Congress. And I was a CBCF fellow for Congressman Clyburn, who was majority whip at that time. And then I ended up working for a U.S. senator. And then I finished that. And when I graduated, I clerked for Judge Beatty, who is a chief justice now of our South Carolina Supreme Court. So I
Dang,
got
that's
I got to
crazy.
learn from a lot of really good, powerful people.
Well, kudos to your mom for taking that time to show you what being a lawyer was
She
versus
did.
just
She took
talking
it. She
about it.
did it, man. Yeah.
That's super cool. And it's really a great way to pass the torch along with young people that are interested in the law. One of the things that I think is so powerful for the people that are interning at our office, if we have a summer intern or somebody at like a local college or whatnot,
Right.
any time that they can get to spend in court is just gold, because that really is something special to see. As much as it's kind of fun to work on various projects at the office, seeing court in real time, there's just something very cool about that experience. So I think that's awesome, that's kind of what left a lasting impression on your end.
That did it. That did it for me.
Well, you're just an incredible business person, and so I think that there's this mindset out there of criminal defense lawyers kind of having to like eke out a living, just kind of how can I scrape by, and so kind of talk about like what have been some of the secrets to your business success? What has allowed you to kind of thrive in criminal defense, not only being an amazing attorney in the courtroom, but also to actually build a practice that is thriving?
I say the biggest thing that really helps is diversification. When I first came out, I did like everybody else. I was working for a firm. And I can tell you how I came out. I was working for a firm. They were doing murder cases. And then at first I was third chair, then I was second chair, then I was doing the murder cases. And then I saw what they were making, getting the murder cases. I said, oh, I could do this myself. It'll be easy. Completely wrong.
That's how it always feels. There's that moment
Completely
where
wrong.
you start doing the math and you're like, man,
I'm like,
would be,
oh man, I can make this. I can do this. I was absolutely
you
wrong. I
could have
didn't
lived the
know.
dream.
Yeah, I didn't know that you gotta, you have to have an office first of all. Then you got to pay for the phone and the receptionist. Then you got to pay for the paralegals, and then they have these things called fees you have to pay even to be a lawyer, and insurance and all of this taxes and everything. And I was like, oh man, it's not what it's cracked up to be. So at that moment when I first came out, I was about 6 months in. I was like, I don't know if I could do this. I might have to go back and go work for somebody. And then I remembered that I really didn't enjoy working for anybody. I really enjoyed having my own time. So I said, all right, I'm going to start this thing, in the broke way and try to figure out how to do it. And you're talking about the 90s now. So you're talking about kind of really the internet taking off. So the only thing you had was the phone book. And so I advertised in the phone book. It was like a really big, expensive ad for me at that time. And I just hoped and prayed that people came in. And then at some point I said, this is not really working. I mean, they know me in the town, but they don't really know what I can do. I am, 28 years old at this point, 27, 28. I said, they're not going to really come to me. What do I got to do? So without clients, I said, well, let me just go to the courtroom. So I went to the courtroom and I literally just walk around there, no cases that first week. And I just talk to people and figure out kind of how they were doing things and watch and see how different lawyers are doing it. And different lawyers would talk to me and say, what do you got up here? And I'd say, hey, look, in truth, I don't have anything up here. I'm trying to generate something. I'm on my hustle, I'm trying to generate something. So let me figure it out. And then I say, you got any dog cases you don't want? Send them to me. So they'd send me those cases and I would make them work. I turn them around. And then I started getting busier and busier and busier. And then then I started getting, really, really good at it. And I enjoyed it. But when the internet came, it changed everything, because instead of just worrying about your local market or learning about, people that were, just in the phone book, you could market to everyone. So in the early days, I would do that. I try to talk to as many people as I could. I try to get on anything I could with respect to the internet. And I'm saying this is like real infancy stage in terms of internet, no Google, free Google.
Yeah, that's right.
Imagine free Google.
Your website was 3 pages, right?
Yeah,
Homepage, contact page. That was it.
That was it, but it was all static. So, I learned to do that. So I started talking to people, and I would go to the courthouses, and I'd go to different courthouses and talk to different lawyers. They would send me cases. Then people would see me do the cases, and folks from the gallery would say, hey, can I get your card? Can you be my lawyer? And it just kind of started from there.
That's awesome. I think that there is something really powerful about that hustle mindset, and also a really strong humility that it takes to go in and just honestly talk to other lawyers in the courtroom and just say, I've got nothing really going on. Can I watch you try a case? Can I take a case that you would like to get off your plate? Whatever you can throw my way, I'm ready to rock and roll. And I think that there is, for young lawyers, I think that there is a real crisis sometimes of like, how do I get started? Where do I go? And going and watching things, just like when you're the 8-year-old kid or when you're the 28-year-old kid, right. You've got to go see in the courtroom how things are done, the way things work at your local courthouse and your local jurisdiction, getting to know the big players in your local jurisdiction, and
get to know the clerk of court.
Yes,
one of the simplest things I did cost me maybe $1. I got a card, and the clerk of court at the criminal court, she had allowed me to be able to get my motions in before some other people, just because she knew I was young and hungry.
That's awesome.
And I said, thank you. So I sent her a card, and in the card, I sent it to her boss, and I talked about what a marvelous job she was doing and how great that was. And what he did was he read it in their meeting.
That is awesome.
Everybody. And to this day, I mean, literally to this day, this lady's been there like 40 something years. To this day, anytime I go to that particular court, she's always like, okay, yours is a priority. That's one card, So
man, that is a golden piece of advice right there. Like if you're looking to really change the way your practice operates, I always talk about being friendly to the clerks and never getting on a clerk's bad side. But I love you taking it to the next level, and really what people want to be have is be thanked, right? Like be thanked, and
they want to smile in their day, and they want someone to show them a little bit of appreciation.
Right.
Nowadays, what I do is I get a big stack, and I tell young lawyers this too. So I'm almost hesitant to give out this secret, but I get a big stack of Starbucks gift cards at $7 each. I spend $700. I get a big stack of about 100 of them, and I give them out literally to court personnel or anyone else. And I'm like, hey, nice to see you. Hope you're doing well today. Look, I got a gift certificate to get you, a cup of coffee or whatever else. Yes. I know you're doing a great job. Thank you. And I give it to them, and you would not believe the litany of cases that I literally get. And someone says, well, my friend said you gave them a Starbucks card and they really liked you and they told me to call you.
Yes.
So as a $7 marketing piece, I'm getting, $10,000 cases off of that. So
I mean,
the little stuff.
It is about doing the little stuff. And, as much as anybody can spend on marketing online or billboards or wherever it might be, when you create personal relationships and people that think you're a good person and trust you, that's where you're going to get the best cases from is from building that network. So what a great easy way to make that happen. Well, I feel like this next kind of like question that I have for you is a little bit like already answered, just based on the conversation that we're having. But with public defenders and being readily available in pretty much everywhere, traffic cases being something that a lot of people feel like they can handle themselves, and there's so much information online. I think there's a mindset among some criminal defense attorneys of, we are becoming a commodity. We're becoming something that, we're just, everybody, is the same. It's hard to differentiate. And you are obviously not kind of stuck in that kind of commodity space. So kind of what is it that allows, Fred Woods to be different, to have this kind of different brand?
I think I looked around and I realized there are just hundreds of lawyers, everywhere in any particular city. And how does a consumer choose that lawyer? So I started thinking about it. Well, how would I choose any service? And eventually I went to one of these marketing seminars, and I forgot who told me, but he said that you're no better than a plumber, and I said, well, you're right, but please explain that. And he said, well, you're no better than a plumber. He says, I had I think it might have been Ken Hardison maybe who said that. He said that he couldn't figure out, he needed a plumber or something like that for his house, and he could not figure out who to call. So he called someone. I called 2 or 3 different people. Some didn't hang up, some hung up the phone, some didn't answer, some didn't respond. He called someone and they were really, really friendly. They came out to the house. They did a marvelous job, and they left him with a refrigerator magnet. So he said, okay, he forgot about it, paid the bill, and went on. Later, he needed a plumber 3 or 4 years later. He was like, I don't know who to call. He looks on his refrigerator and it's right there. He is. And he's been looking at it the whole time, and so he called that particular one because that particular one left him a lasting impression. So I think that what I try to do is I try to, any person I meet, I mean, any person, I try to do something that leaves a lasting impression. So whether it's a Starbucks card or it's a hello or it's a conversation they might not have gotten or giving them some help, I try to do something that leaves a lasting impression. But I also make sure that I have enough refrigerator magnets that I do work for a client. They remember me. You are a commodity. But how do you choose your own commodities? How do you choose the things you buy? It's because you keep hearing about them. They're relevant to you. There's a perceived value there of that particular commodity. And because it's just the repetition of always hearing about it. And so if you're always having something that's going on and people are always hearing about you, eventually you'll get the calls, you'll get the calls that come in. And I'm not a person that doesn't give credit to people. I give credit to everyone. So even when I'm speaking about something, I give credit to the people who did it, right?
Right.
I was at the CRISP seminar, as you were.
Yeah.
And he said, well, did you reach us through was it a phone call? Was it an email? Was it something you saw online? Was it YouTube? Was it, social media, right? And he said, doesn't matter. Who cares?
Yeah, who cares?
You found it,
That's right. That's right.
So I think it's for us, it's just really important to be everywhere, so that even if we're in these non-traditional spaces and you don't see us on a billboard, you heard about us some sort of way. That's how people come to you. They've heard about you some sort of way. They may have no idea what you look like, but I heard that if I get a DUI, it's the North Carolina DWI guy that I need to be able to call.
Yeah, no, I think that lasting impression mindset is so special in terms of how to create your personal brand and
Right.
trying to figure out how that's natural to you, right? You can't do it in a way that's unnatural, but everybody can figure out how to leave that lasting impression. And just in terms of your focus on, every single person I meet, I want to leave this lasting impression, no matter who they are. It doesn't matter what position they're in. It doesn't matter
if they can help me or not. It's just, leaving them, if nothing else, smiling or with a laugh. And I think you're right about this. Authenticity is key. I couldn't do something that's not me. I have two sides to me. The first side is I'm always dressed up and I'm ready for court. The other side is jeans, cowboy hats, pickup trucks. And as you know, I wear boots for everything I'm doing. So I have my boots on now, If you didn't see me with boots, it wouldn't be me. So
that's right.
You have to do the things that are, authentic to you as a person. If you're a little bit nerdy, be that. If you're the bookworm guy, be that. If you're something else, be that. But just be who you really are. And I think people appreciate that more.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like, in terms of, you just mentioned a couple of different marketing conferences, where you've picked up some different pieces, but you once told me at I think it was a DWI CLE down in South Carolina, we were standing outside during one of the breaks, and you were like, "This is my favorite part of the CLE. It's not about the information that's in the classroom, which is great. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff to be learned, but you were like, it's the connections and the people." You definitely initiated, again, like the reconnection down in Atlanta at the CRISP Summit. Hey, where are you at? Like, let's get together and talk. And then you had 2 or 3 other people around that.
And I brought everybody and made sure we all took pictures together too.
Exactly. I mean, you're really, really good about kind of, trying to find those connections and build upon those. So in terms of, the ways that you built that referral business, you talked about that a little bit already, but what has been some of the positives that you have used
I've got a lot of them, but I've got something great for people who are starting out. Collaboration is the key. It really is.
Yes.
If you see a bunch of DWI or DUI lawyers and you're a DUI lawyer in your market, you might think, oh man, I'm competing against these guys.
Yes.
Really,
that's the first thing you think.
That's the first thing you think, but really that's an opportunity to collaborate. I have a friend of mine, I don't think he'll mind me mentioning him. His name is John Bateman. John Bateman was like,
great guy.
John Bateman was like, I don't know, 5th, 6th in the market at the time. I was like 3rd in the market for DUIs at the time. We had a main competitor, and I came to John. I was like, look, John, if you and I collaborate and do a bunch of these cases, we could take a lot of market share. And then that pretty much grew into a really good friendship. And since then, we've been shooting, we've been fishing, trout fishing and things like that. If I need something, I call him. If he needs to bounce something off a lawyer, he calls me. If we just need to talk, we talk. But we're literally head to head in the markets. And one of the good things happened. One of the good things happened was that he moved above me pretty much in the rankings. And I was so happy for him.
Right.
Because for me, it wasn't about who was 1st, 2nd, 3rd or competition. It was like there was a piece for everyone, right?
Right. Exactly.
And so for me, it was more about collaboration. I mean, I literally met you from collaboration.
Right.
And
it was.
I had a time where I had a lot of DUI cases just coming in through everywhere. And I said, I can't do all of these. And sometimes they cross over North Carolina. And then I called you and then started sending you them, and you start just blowing up. Now you got this big operation that you have. And just like John, I'm really happy for you guys that are blowing up your operations, because that's another chance to even collaborate with you on more cases that you have, more things that you're doing. So I think that young lawyers need to see people in their market as collaborators, not competitors. And if they see them and they really develop genuine friendships with those folks, you'll find that you'll get a lot of organic cases that you didn't have to spend marketing budget on. There's enough room for everyone in the market if you'll just collaborate and work with other really good lawyers.
I think that's such a powerful piece. I think the scarcity mindset is really problematic within the kind of legal realm. as a whole within the criminal defense arena. I just think there's so many people that have that mindset of, basically, if I win, everybody else is losing. And that's just not the right attitude to have.
And I want to touch on one thing that I think kind of piggybacks off of that is where you position yourself. You have to position yourself to where you're kind of niching down to a particular thing that you do. Then you can have 10 of those different niches if you want to, but you want to be known for certain things. Another thing is that if you compete on price, it's a race to the bottom.
It is, yes.
I never do. I always do the opposite. And the analogy I use is, you have BMW, Mercedes, Rolls Royce, right? Expensive cars, but somebody is buying them.
Right.
The cars that come in at the entry level of the market, they come in, they go away because they're competing only on being cheap, and
for sure.
I say cheap lawyers aren't good lawyers aren't cheap. So what I do is kind of legally, I position myself in the BMW, Rolls Royce, Mercedes Benz, category. And I tell people up front, I am not going to be cheap. I tell them that I'm not going to be cheap. If you're looking for the cheapest lawyer, I am the wrong one. You shouldn't choose me, but if you're worried in the middle of the night about what's going to happen to your family and you need somebody that you really think is going to be there for your case, I am the perfect person to call.
That is awesome.
And at that point, once they've adopted that, price is irrelevant. We haven't even discussed what the price is yet. They have to be confident that they want you first.
Yes.
Before you quote a price. That's a real important point for lawyers to know.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's one of the, in consultations that I have with clients, talking about the price is the very last thing that we talk about, because I want to know the facts of their case. I want to get all of the information, ask a bunch of questions, have the time to really get to know that client, not only in terms of what's happening in the courtroom, but how is this impacting the rest of your life. And once people understand that you really care about them and that you have their best interest at heart, again, it becomes this situation where they can recognize that value. Again, you're not competing on price, like you just said, you're competing on your value. And so that's what you've got to do. Additionally, to avoid becoming a commodity, is kind of stay in that value mindset.
And that goes to your question about a commodity. You can be a commodity. It's okay to be a commodity, but be an expensive one, be the expensive car, be the expensive house, be the great commodity, be the Apple computer instead of 5,000 computers that nobody knows, what the brand is, be the commodity that people want, even when we're buying computers, for example. You buy a computer that's 3 times more expensive because you think that the value is there for it, but you can't really tell. That technology is going to change tomorrow. It's like buying a flat screen TV. By the time you bought it, it's obsolete already.
That's right. That's so true.
And so you have to get other things instead of price to be able to determine what value you're going to pay for it. So I think that the customer service level that you give clients, the commitment that you give to them, the work that they see you do, and the caring that you have for their case matters way more than trying to set a low price for something.
I totally agree. And I also agree with you about the niching down, kind of zeroing in on a certain type of charge or certain practice area is so important in terms of becoming like the go-to person in that space. At the same time, I know you've kind of been able to diversify your practice a little bit. So talk to us a little bit about kind of that dichotomy between niching down and diversification.
At the beginning, I was a general criminal defense lawyer, and that's all I would do. Was criminal defense, but there was no way to differentiate me between any other criminal defense lawyer that they saw. And again, that's 90s. There's no way to tell who was good. There was no Google rating at that time. You could see the ad, but you had no Google rating. You didn't know.
no feedback from outside sources.
Feedback. No social proofing, as they call it, to figure out that guy was good or not. You had no clue. So to be able to differentiate myself, I started focusing on certain things. One of them was in about I think it was 2010 when I did it. I said, I'm going to start dominating very small areas. So at that point, DUI wasn't a subset like it was now.
Right.
So I said, I'm just going to do DUIs. And I would get DUIs from South Carolina all the time. Some would come in from other states, and I'd, call an attorney like you and say, hey, I can't do anything with this. You represent people. And then, that would form a relationship. And then I'd have a Georgia attorney say, I can't do these. Can you do those? And I'd send them those cases, and that would form a relationship because I'm making the money, at that time. Everybody likes when you're making the money. But what I did was I said, let me get certain areas. So now we have a DUI practice that's its own practice. We do all 46 counties in the state of South Carolina, not just one or two. So therefore, I don't really have to compete. If I get one case per county in a month, that's 46 new DUI cases
that's right.
that you get. So we kind of spread it out there. But I do DUI as a practice area, its own practice group. I do civil asset forfeiture as its own practice group, which is unique. I'm in federal court a lot. And so in federal court, they also have civil asset forfeiture. The government will take $100,000 from someone suspected of drug activity or tax fraud or something. I get that money back. And when I get that money back, I get a percentage of that money back, of the percentage of what I got back, almost like a personal injury case or an auto accident case. It is very complicated in that you have all these federal guidelines and these big status conferences and things like that. But if you could do enough of it, you get to know the people who are doing it.
That's so important. I mean, that's such a huge edge to have that.
Yeah. So the first time I had to really spend 2 years doing a case with 2 or 3 of them. Then after that, I ended up actually going to their seminar and getting to know them, because you can go to any legal seminar you want. So I went to their seminar and got to know them. And now literally a lot of times it's a phone call and 1 or 2 months of waiting because they got to make it look good at the office,
Right.
But and then we come to settlements and we get it done. But they also know that I'll try those cases. So they know that experience wise, they can't really test me. I'll go the extra mile. So that's a practice area. So I have DUI, civil asset forfeiture as a practice area, international cases that we do, including business cases and prisoner transfers, keep me out of the country a lot. We also have a practice area within criminal defense that just does domestic violence cases, only does domestic violence, that whole section. And then lastly, we do federal criminal defense, which, as if there's 10% of lawyers who do criminal defense, 10% of that do federal. There's only a small group that are even going to try it.
I will do federal DUIs because we get a lot of them up here in Nashville on the Parkway. But that is as advanced as I get, and that's a big scary court.
That's
baby federal. That's baby federal. So
that's baby federal, but it's a big scary court. But we'll do major federal drug cases. We did a lot of PPP fraud. We did a lot of cases for breach of trust, common scheme, a lot of different things like that. But those take a lot of time, but we do them. But they're at the upper echelon of the price point, so it becomes worth your time.
Yeah,
I would say to younger lawyers, develop 5 or 6 areas within whatever your practice area is. If it's personal injury, do truck cases, auto cases, motorcycle, whatever. That's within your practice group. Our practice group now, to kind of further go into it, is 50% criminal defense with individual niche markets, 50% personal injury with individual niche markets. And as a collaboration, we don't even do all of the personal injury. Like, we don't do Social Security. We take them in and then we give them to another attorney that does them, and we monitor the client and the progress. So, everybody wins because everybody's getting paid and the clients are happy.
Yeah, I think that, again, I think that just that niching down, again, you don't have to do it in just one particular space, but once you become known as like the person to go to for forfeiture, civil forfeiture hearings. I mean, there's so few people that are doing those, but they happen so frequently that it's just like, all right, I'm gonna handle the criminal defense thing, but go talk to Fred about your civil issue.
The good thing about it, because it's federal law, it's nationwide. So I've had to go to Utah, Nevada, California, Montana, Washington State, Florida a lot. Texas a whole lot, and I get to go to these places, but I love to travel, so it gives me opportunity to spend a day or two somewhere, try a case, and come back home. It's national law, so it helps expand my practice area. So once again, I'm not competing in a local area.
Right. Yeah. And really not like you kind of just said, you're in that kind of, just almost in your own space, because there's not that many people that are even doing that. I mean,
Well, not federally, they don't want to go to federal court because it's
right,
big and scary.
right,
But and then on top of that, you don't want to do civil work in federal court where
right,
it's
right.
where it's intensive. But for us, we developed the forms, the practices, and the procedures which make it easy for us.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, it's really important to think about how you are going to kind of focus that. And I think it can be overwhelming for young lawyers because you're just trying to kind of survive so often in those first years of practice.
Yeah.
Take every case that comes in the door, and again, whatever the criminal defense issue is. But even if you're still taking all of those cases in, every single traffic ticket, felony, misdemeanor, doesn't matter what, federal, if you're taking every case in, you can still, while you're doing that, start to become known for a specific thing, or tell other lawyers or
about
other
what
people,
you can be able to do. You
this
look at
this is what I'm focusing on.
Yeah, and again, like I said, if it didn't come from me, I give credit to the people who did it. You look at what John Morgan said about himself. He said in the early days, he'd get up and his wife would say, "Where are you going?" Because the phone ring at 3 o'clock in the morning. He's like, "I got to track the trailer case." You remember
That's right.
That?
Yeah.
Like, I'm gone. You got to have that hustle and you got to have that spirit. I mean, 26 years in now, I still have that same hustle mentality. And if it's 3 o'clock in the morning and the tractor trailer case comes in, I'm like, I'm gone.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
You got to really keep that spirit. And I think that, younger lawyers can learn from really the older guys, about, just hustling and saying that they're going to be there no matter what. You've got incredible hustle. You wake up and go to sleep, late. It seems like you're always working, so that hustle is the spirit that other people need to get, the same one that you have. You literally have a background that said discipline equals freedom.
Well, it is. I think it is so important to have that mindset. And I also think it communicates something to the client, right? Like, I mean, right. If you're the one answering that phone call, you've already differentiated yourself. You don't even need to really kind of be that great on the phone at that point, because you are the person that answered the phone call at that hour. So, I mean, it's just a huge differentiator between you and any automated answering system that's coming in, or, hey, I'll have, an attorney call you back in the morning, or what is most likely just getting a voicemail, right? Like, I mean, that's
right. Or people don't answer at all, and that kind of what you did is you, I don't know. I don't care what I call. You were always answering. Or you always say, "I'll get right back to you. I'm in court. I'll call you in 10 minutes." You were always accessible. And I think that that's important, because there's a definite correlation between the time that people call, because it's scary for them to call a lawyer, and when they need you. When they call, they need you at that moment. Yes. And if you can get them within that first few seconds, that first couple minutes, you have a 80-90% chance of landing the case, no matter what it is.
Yeah. And it's also one of the few places that I think within the service industry, small business owners and criminal defense lawyers being among that group, can really separate themselves in a positive way, because most customer service experiences currently stink. I mean, they're just terrible. They're just waiting on the line. You're getting transferred. You're pushing buttons. You're screaming into your phone saying, "Talk to a representative." Like, I mean, it's just a nightmare.
Or you're doing this 2, 1. Agent.
I've got all my kids, running around in the background screaming, so I can't even understand what I'm trying to say, So it's just
when I had my 4-year-old one time say agent in the background, I realized I was saying it too much into the phone, try to get an airline agent. I said, "This is terrible." The customer service experience, I think that is the reason people come back to brands, or the reason that they come back to an attorney, or even a restaurant. It might not be the best restaurant, but the customer service was amazing. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, and I guess with that kind of 25 years plus
26, buddy.
26 being in the business of law. whether there's kind of any major changes. You talked about kind of the advent of the internet and how that changed everything. Where do you see, kind of over the next decade, some changes coming down the pike to the legal marketplace?
I think that contract lawyers will have a harder time because you have applications such as Chat GPI that can literally do that job.
Right.
I think that becomes harder. I think that the lawyers who are doing more of a rote transactional work, such as real estate is already one of the lowest paying, things with the highest liability that
it is. Yeah. I mean, there's extreme liability on that.
Yeah,
front.
extreme liability for a couple of $100s. So with that, but that's what lawyers will start out in. But you'll have all this liability for this. I think that's going to change as title companies and the title industry changes and consolidates and innovates. There'll be less lawyers doing that. So I think that it's going to come down to what it always comes down to: brands, personality, the customer service level that you provide, the quality of service that you provide, how much real work you're putting out there. That's not going to change. Lawyers get afraid that they're going to become obsolete, but then they graduate new lawyers every day. And why? Because one, the attrition is terrible. People get out quickly. If they can't cut this is very much a you got to have really good cojones to do this.
That's right. Thing. You do.
You know what I mean? You got to have you can't be nervous or scared or worried. You got to have a certain personality. That's one. And I think also they're worried that the competition is going to drive them out. But high value will always equal high prices. Higher prices or higher that amounts that you can charge means that you can do fewer cases. And if you're doing fewer cases, you can give more value, more quality to the cases that you do.
That's so true. Yes.
And if you look at any type of brand, and I use Apple a lot because it's an easy brand. Apple's computers are 3 times more than everybody else's. There are at least 2.5 times more. They have a completely different operating system, so they're not going to work with what the majority of the rest of them are going to work with. And then, if you own Apple product, they want you to buy every other Apple product to be able to go into it and consolidate it together. Their phones are expensive, everything, but you still pay for that. They still are a market leader. You can get the cheap flip phone, at Target. Or you can get the $1,000 plus or $1,200 Apple phone.
Yeah.
And you will stretch your budget to get that $1,200 Apple phone because of that perceived value. So I think that if lawyers will keep their value high, their work product high, their accessibility, which can be difficult, pretty high, then they'll see that they will continue to thrive while other lawyers will not be able to do so. During COVID, we actually expanded because there were lawyers who said, "Hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I quit. Can you come over here, look at our book of business and help us out and cherry pick some cases?" And we did that, and that allowed us to be able to expand. So I think that if you keep your work product high and you keep your value high, you just really, really, go after customer service when you can do it well, you'll always have value and people will always pay for your services.
Yeah, and I love that. I think that there's so often this mindset of trying to create volume-based practices. So whether that's in the real estate world or the traffic ticket world or whatever it might be, when you get too focused on the volume-based business and being able to just make it by having enough cases coming in the door, you can lower your fees. But then it becomes basically all about just processes, and it's not about the value that is being provided to each client. And so it's not to say that you can't run a successful real estate business, successful traffic ticket business, but I think the focus always needs to be on, no matter if you're doing 2 cases or 300 a month, the value that you're providing to each client that comes in the door.
That's a lesson that you had to learn, though, right?
Yes.
And, you take most lawyers, myself included, and probably you, as you're doing well, you're like running, trying to get this. I want more people, more of a big group, more offices, more all of this, and then you end up with more overhead,
right?
Which means you got to work harder to be able to supply money down the funnel to all the overhead that you've created, and then you get to where you get bigger, you contract, get bigger, contract, and then you get to a place where you say, all right, this is a comfortable space for me. And I think lawyers have to decide what's that comfortable space, whether it's going to be 10 lawyers that you have with a whole lot of staff, or it's going to be 2 lawyers and 10 staff.
Right.
You have to get to where that space allows you to do a work-life balance. And kind of going into that a bit, I would tell younger lawyers, because older lawyers, I'm learning from them still,
Yes.
But I would tell younger lawyers that once you get a fee in a case that's really good, don't go buy a bunch of stuff. Take that fee, reinvest that into your practice, or take that fee and use that to be able to market, to be able to get even more cases that will come back to your practice. Use that to kind of turn over. You'll get to a level to where a level that we got to, where we were marketing and we were doing all these things. We got to a good level. We're getting pretty good checks coming in, whether that was PI or on the criminal side. And we said, okay, what do we do with this that we got now? And the first thing I would say is, pay your taxes, put that in the tax account, first before you do anything.
Yeah.
Then secondly, after you do that, take the rest that you have, and it's okay to diversify. And I wanted to touch on this for a minute. So we're now diversified into, or I am into real estate. I'm diversified into transportation, diversified into retail and some other areas. And I was able to do that because I would get my law practice to a point, get our fees to a certain point, take a chunk of what I had, reinvest it into the firm. Then after we started getting to a better point, reinvest that into other areas. And I would tell young lawyers, especially in this economy, TikTok gives you 1,000 ways to make money, right?
Yes.
You try one of them. Take the money that you got, even if it was $1,000 or something, and say, okay, I'll try this business, or I'll try that. And while you're still practicing law, the fees that you have can be used to be able to generate money in other areas that will assure your long-term success, because you can't do it forever. So now we're more of a brand, but we also have other companies which are their own brands. It's kind of like Jay-Z says, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. I'm like, we have all these different entities that we have that generate revenue for us and help our employees live a better life, help us live a better life, help us do more, help us travel more and spend more time with our families. And I think it's important that as I say, you take what you have, you work really hard, and you reinvest it in your businesses.
Yeah, I think that investing back in your business first, especially in the early stages, staying lean when it comes to overhead and not spending on, kind of a new suit, new car, new anything, just, that whatever that upgrade looks like, because it kind of has this like compound effect, right? Like, the interest that you're kind of, that you see, building in a bank account, it's so minimal, kind of like on the front end of things, but over time, because you've put it in and reinvested in yourself,
it kind of grows. And like I said, giving credit where credit is due. I listen to a lot of people because I am one that I don't care if you're 6 or you're 100. If there's something I can learn from you, you know what I mean? I can learn it from you,
Yes.
So I try to learn from everyone. And there was something that Grant Cardone said. Grant Cardone is this big motivational speaker.
I love his stuff.
Does all the stuff. He said, never spend earned income.
Yes.
And I took that to heart, later in life, but I took it to heart. He said, never spend earned income. He said, if I earn that, I'm trying to figure out how to flip that 2 and 3 and 4 times, or expand that, or put that in a new business. And then once that business makes money, I use that to buy the things that I want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Never spend earned income. If you're a young lawyer and you're starting out, as you said, keep it lean. Don't try to do a lot. If you get something, reinvest it. And then once you've reinvested it and you make more, never spend the earned income. And I think that you'll be able to weather the kind of ups and downs that we all have in this legal market.
Yeah, I mean, just a small example of that is that you earn $500 on a case, and you can go out to dinner with your wife, maybe 7, 8 times, something like that, or less, you can or less, or you can go buy $100 worth of Starbucks gift cards and start to try to create that kind of personal impression with individual people that you're meeting. And again, there's no ROI figure that you have for those Starbucks cards. Maybe it's a good experiment, maybe it's a bad experiment.
Well, we track, but if I do ask people, I ask everyone, how did you come to us? How did you find us, or whatever? And the Starbucks gift card people are the people who are referring them.
Yes. Yeah.
So if you can track, but if not, just generally send out goodwill.
Yeah.
Sending out goodwill everywhere. It just comes back to you. It just really does. It's kind of like paying tithes to the public almost, You're putting it in and you're getting good things back, just like you would if you did that in church.
But I do think that there's a certain element of like trial and error as well. Especially as a young business owner, you don't really necessarily know what's going to work. And I had a lot of failed experiments in terms of marketing ideas in the early stages. Some of them were just horrible. Yeah, they were. And so it's just one of those things where. Again, I wouldn't take back the money from those, because it was a great learning experience, even though it didn't pan out in the moment. It was one of those things where you say, okay, now we're going to try to put it into this area. And so you've got to go out and be brave enough to fail.
That wasn't you.
No,
okay.
No, but I did have an ad in the Asheville Tourist baseball team bathrooms for a while. So pretty close. I mean, it was pretty close.
Well, they had important business while they saw you, I guess.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. So,
but everything doesn't work. And it's about having to try those things, about, wanting to do those things, and saying, hey, I'm going to try anyway, try everything, see what sticks.
I totally agree. One of the things that's so difficult, I think, for people that are hustling all the time and trying to kind of drum up business, trying to learn, is there's so much time that is spent on learning the law and talking with attorneys and learning how to practice in the courtroom. And again, you should absolutely be doing that. You want to be the best at your craft that you can possibly be. But in terms of also working on your business, you are running a million directions, a million miles an hour. How do you have time to work on your business? Because you're obviously doing that.
That's a good question. I force the time. I don't know if it works for everybody, but it works for me. And what I do is I will start about 6 a.m. and I will not start in my day until about 12 a.m. in terms of phone calls. I'll start about 6 a.m. and I kind of rest and relax my mind, organize my day. That's my private time that I have, whether it's 6 or 7. And then by the time 8 o'clock is kind of moving, I'm kind of moving and rolling and doing everything I need to be able to do. Then throughout the day, I'm working. At 5 o'clock, once I stop, then I spend the next hour sitting and thinking about what I did in my day, or I spend that hour organizing what I'm going to do next. And then about 6 o'clock, I start calling back people if I haven't responded to them. I'm really serious about trying to call everyone back, So I start from wherever I am. I'll call them back, starting about 6 o'clock or so till about 8. And then at this time I'm home. So I'll have my home time, but my phone is still active if people need to call me or after hours calls. And I've gotten some really big cases from after hours calls, and then I quit. And then once I quit, I go to bed. That's an 18-hour day of doing something. So in that 18-hour day, if I do that 18-hour day, 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, then that's 72 hours. So I've already worked 32 hours longer than the average person. You know what I mean? In a 4-day work week. And then on Friday, I schedule nothing. I don't take new clients. I let my paralegals do it. I don't talk to new clients about cases unless I'm just telling them to call the paralegal. I don't go to court. I will do anything not to go to court on a Friday. I'm sure if there's a clerk that saw this, they understand why I don't now. I don't go to court on a Friday. That is my time to plan my marketing. That is my time to deal with any management things or issues we might have to do, to plan out what our revenue is going to be, to pay bills. A lot of times you don't even have time to even pay the bills that are being generated.
Yeah, for sure.
So I pay bills that day. I work on marketing. I work on management. I work on what our strategic plans are, and I generally don't do legal work, and I won't take in cases, and I don't go to court. So that gives me a whole day to focus. But you know what else it does? It gives me Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to kind of do what I want to do. So I have a 3-day weekend on the end of every 4-day, 72-hour work week. I am working 32 hours longer than the average person, and I am getting 3 days weekends when they're not even getting weekends. So by Monday, I'm happy, and everybody's like, "What happened to you?" I'm like, "Man, I've been off." I've called you from like 4 countries already.
You have. Every time I talk to you, you're in a different country.
A different country, So I try to enjoy my life as much as possible, and you mix in that with your family and your friends' time, and you try to, I just try to enjoy as much as possible. But I get a lot of work pumped out. So the secret is I work longer than most, and I relax longer than most.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. And what I'm taking away from that is, if you're not setting aside time to work on your law firm, there's really no excuse. Because if you look at what Fred is doing on his end, week in and week out, to make sure that time happens with all of the craziness that he has going on, I mean, there's no reason why everybody else should not be able to do that same thing and set aside some time to make sure that they're doing it.
The time is really important, that anybody can do, but also it comes down to the person. I mean, you look at you've got a lot of hustle naturally. Nobody has to wake you up if you have work to do, right?
Right.
Nobody has to wake me up if I have work to do. I'm going to do that work, and nobody has to tell you to do your work. You'll do it. I'm the same one. I'm the oldest child. I was always that way, had to be responsible for everyone else. So a part of that is innate, right? It's a part of the thing that you have to have, that the bigger, practice lawyers like the John Morgans have, or someone else have, is that, either you work or you won't, and some people, that dog won't hunt, they don't have it in them to be able to do that. But if you have that drive and that hustle, you'll always be successful in whatever business you decide to do. And the same is true for lawyers. You have to really want to do it to be able to be successful at it.
I love that. Well, Fred, I think maybe we're kind of at a good stopping point. But before I let you take off and get to the end of your 72-hour work week here on a Thursday afternoon,
right.
Let me ask you just one more question. If you had to give advice to a young attorney that's thinking about how they could grow their business, anything besides what we've kind of talked about already that you would tell that attorney?
Yeah, I would. I'd tell them, and in this order: get out and go talk to older lawyers, even if you're just sitting in their office and learning from them, and they have something to be able to tell you. There were a lot of smoke-filled rooms that I don't smoke, but I stayed in, because that particular attorney was so, smart and learned, that I wanted to be able to learn from them.
Absolutely.
And, learn from them, have good mentors. I was lucky enough to have Congressman Clyburn, state senators, U.S. senators, like Theo Mitchell, who was a state senator, to have U.S. senators to work for, and to have, the Chief Justice of our Supreme Court now, that were my mentors. And I would sit there and humble myself and learn anything they wanted me to learn. Even today, if I got to carry the umbrella for one of them, I'm carrying it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would say do that.
Great.
So go out and talk to older lawyers. Try to cultivate good mentors. Be nice to everybody that you meet, because you don't know where a case is going to come from.
Yes.
And get out of the office. The phone won't ring if you're sitting in the office. I am convinced of that. I'm convinced of that. The minute you step outside the office, everybody needs you. So get out of the office. Go talk to other lawyers. Go join go be on somebody else's podcast, spread goodwill everywhere. If you'll do that, it comes back to you. And I promise you, it comes back to you. That and praying and working hard, you will never go away,
Amen. I love that. That's great, Fred. I think that is such a powerful thing. I love particularly just getting out of the office. I mean, I just think that there's so much value in going out, because it just requires then that you go make connections somewhere, right? Like, I mean,
you got to talk to somebody.
Yeah, you got to talk to somebody. Yeah. I love it. Well, thank you so much.
I'd like to say for you, this has been great, but it's real powerful what you're doing, allowing other people a chance to learn. People don't do that. And that's just really, really good. And you're doing that. You're expanding your brand, but you're also expanding the knowledge that people are getting. And I just think that's wonderful, man. So kudos to you, man. Hats off to you. You're doing a great job. And anytime you need to be doing anything, man, you got my private numbers. Call.
Well, I appreciate that very much, Fred. It's awesome doing these podcasts because every single time I have a guest on, I learned some, I've got a whole laundry list of things that I can take away from today's talk. So right. It's such a great personal experience, but I very much appreciate those sentiments. So thank you again so much for sharing your wisdom here with the audience.
No problem. If anyone needs to contact me, you can contact me directly if you want to.
I'll put all your contact info in the show notes.
Yeah, put it in the show notes and let people know. And call me if you have a question about anything. I'm always happy to answer questions.
Some people say that and they don't mean it. Just so everybody knows, Fred will answer your phone call. So he will do it
from anywhere. I can't promise you where I will be or what time zone. When I answer that, I think I called you from Thailand one time.
That's right.
But I will answer your phone call. I certainly will, especially your text message. So yeah, reach out to me.
Love it, Fred. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
If you found the information in this podcast to be valuable, I simply ask that you pay it forward and share this podcast with another member of the legal community. Also, if you would leave us a rating or a review on whatever platform you are listening on, I would greatly appreciate it.